Colombia has just got more expensive for foreigners to visit and live here, and I'm going to explain to you why I think that overall this is a good thing to happen to Colombia. So straight off the bat, all of you watching this who earn in a foreign currency but spend in pesos will have realized that in the last year, the peso has appreciated around 25% versus the pound, the dollar, the euro, basically all major currencies, and it makes Colombia more expensive. Colombia is no longer a super cheap holiday or relocation destination for foreigners. And while I'll admit, yes, in the short term, it is a little bit painful to be spending 25% more on things, especially when you account for local inflation as well, it hurts. But I think a lot of foreigners make the mistake of thinking this is only bad news, where in fact, I think the good can outweigh the bad when you look at it in a little bit more detail. Okay, so the first point, a stronger peso in relation to other major currencies means that Colombia is becoming a stronger country economically, right? A country that's becoming more expensive because their currency is appreciating is a healthier story compared to the other story where a country is really cheap because the currency is plummeting in value. And that's what we want as foreigners coming to a country, right? We want the country that has taken us in as a guest to be a strong, healthy, prosperous country economically speaking. Even though it would be cheaper to live here if the currency and the economy were crashing, I personally would rather live in a country whose currency is appreciating every month and every year, illustrating a healthy economy, rather one that's losing value every single month. Okay, and so point number two, it shows that Colombia is maturing as a country. It's attracting more foreign investment. It's becoming more stale. People are more happy to invest their money in Colombia compared to 20 years ago, for example. And it's no longer being viewed just as a cheap holiday destination for expats wanting a better life. You know, if you think about it long term, if Colombia wants to be seen alongside the likes of countries like Costa Rica, Portugal, Chile, Brazil, Mexico, countries where people feel safe and happy to invest in, that's going to come alongside currency appreciation, right? And the third point, I think the currency appreciation in some ways filters out the kind of lower quality foreigners that come to Colombia because it's no longer a cheap holiday destination. When Wizz Air went bust in the US, I read the entries into Colombia from the United States because people from the US just treated Colombia as a cheap holiday destination because they were getting 4,500 pesos for their US dollar. They could come to Medellin on a cheap Spirit Airlines flight and have a nice holiday. I'm not sure about you, but I'm not sure that is the image that Colombia wants to portray now to the rest of the world. And as a foreigner living here, taking a long-term view of Colombia, I think it's better for Colombia to get rid of that cheap holiday destination vibe and I guess transition to a kind of more normal destination where it's not super expensive, but it's not really cheap either. That nice middle ground. And because of that, potentially a fall in kind of low quality tourism into Colombia. I don't know, the economy can kind of shift away from catering to those kind of tourists and invest locally more in good infrastructure projects, healthcare, education, that kind of thing. Because when a country is seen as a cheap holiday destination, the local economy looks to take advantage of that, right? You have cheap restaurants popping out everywhere. You know, the city center is full of hostels rather than nice hotels, stuff like that. Okay, and point number four, a stronger peso could improve the quality of life of local Colombians because imported goods into Colombia from other countries become a lot more affordable. Also, international travel for Colombians just becomes a lot cheaper. You know, when they were getting £1 to their 5,500 pesos a year ago, it would be almost impossible for a Colombian to go and visit the UK. But now, with that 25% difference, it's a lot more manageable. And that will basically go for countries in Europe, in the United States, Australia, that kind of thing. Also, savings and assets in Colombian pesos just hold more value internationally when the peso is stronger. And you know, this is good news for Colombians. I have lots of local Paisa friends, for example, here in Medellin that would like to buy Garmin watch, for example. When the peso is really weak, that Garmin is just really expensive because it's made in the US. So recently, because the peso is nice and strong, because the currency is appreciated a good amount, you know, they're able to buy that Garmin a lot easier. And that's just one example of many imported goods and services we get here in Colombia. And that's overall a good thing. If the local population have more purchasing power when they're buying imported goods, that can only be a good thing in my view. So that's point number four. It can result in an improved quality of life for local Colombians earning in pesos because those imported goods are cheaper. And also any assets held in Colombian pesos are going to be worth more internationally. And the fifth and final point, I kind of touched on this earlier, but the foreigners who actually stay in Colombia, who understand that Colombia is now no longer a super cheap living destination, are going to be the real die-hard Colombia fans, right? People like me. You know, I would stay in Colombia even if the peso appreciated another 10%, even another 15%. I doubt that will happen. But given that, I will still stay. I love this country, the weather, the people, learning Spanish, integrating myself into the culture. I know that some of you watching my YouTube videos feel like I don't integrate myself into the Colombian culture. I guess that's hard to understand just from my YouTube videos because I'm speaking in English, etc. But take it from me, I really do like this country and I will stay here even if the peso appreciates another 10 or 15%. And these are the kind of foreigners you want in your country, right? You don't want a bunch of foreigners who are only here because it's cheap. They don't really feel much attachment to the country. They're not really bothered about integrating culturally. They might not even learn Spanish. They're just here for a good time, not a long time. And they don't really see it as a long-term living destination, unlike someone like me. And so yeah, the appreciation of the peso in the last year or so is a good way to kind of filter out the good foreigners versus the bad foreigners. And hopefully you'll only get more of the good type of foreigner staying here in Colombia and putting down roots and creating a life here. Because the other type who just see it as a cheap location will just go to another country where their dollar can get more local currency. I don't know, like another country, Latin America or Thailand or Bali or somewhere like this. I actually have videos of people who pop up on my Instagram who do exactly that. 1 year ago, they were making videos about how great Medellin is and how great Colombia is and they're going to stay here forever. And then now, because the peso is appreciated like 25%, and now making videos like, oh, I left Colombia, I've now come to Thailand, it's way better, that kind of thing. I don't think these are the kind of foreigners you want staying in Colombia because they were mainly motivated to come here in the first place because it was a cheap location. And so yeah, overall, of course, it hurts a little bit in the short term having to pay a little bit more for things, but in the long term, if that means Colombia has a healthy economy, local people are more prosperous, there's more internal investment, there's better infrastructure, there's higher quality foreigners here who want to integrate themselves into the culture, I think personally that's an overall plus, even though it hurts a little bit in the short term paying more for my menu del dia. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.